So let's get started with a guy who calls himself the hippie cripple. Hi, I just wanted to share my experience with you since I think this might be up your alley for your show on Monday. I suffered a traumatic injury to my pelvic floor region at age 14. It wasn't an accident, it was deliberate. In my school, there was a game going around called Gaddafi'd where you'd shove your hand up someone's ass and scream, "Gaddafi!" Because, you know, he died that way. Ha ha. This was all harmless, but somehow someone thought it would be a good idea to run full speed from the end of a hallway and knee me into the air by my tailbone pelvic floor perineum area while I stood there not expecting it. I was kicked so hard that I flew up into the air and landed on the exact same spot I was kicked, knocking me out. I saw black for a number of minutes, rolled around on the floor, but eventually my vision came back. I dusted myself off, hurt but not dead. I went home. Pain subsided within a few days/weeks. I thought it was just a regular injury everyone has at some point. Within a year of the initial injury, I started to see symptoms present themselves. Mainly pain, non-localized, and muscle spasms. Nothing I thought was too abnormal. At 16, I began seeking treatment for what I thought was rheumatoid arthritis, for which I had been treated for a year with biologics and other treatments for autoimmune diseases. At 3 years post-injury, age 17, I was floored. I couldn't stand on my legs. I got stuck in a hallway in my school and a teacher found me. That was the last time I really went back to school, as I was put on homebound tutoring for the rest of my senior year. I had always been severely depressed, but I think the chronic pain really drove me to a point I don't believe I would have reached if I hadn't been afflicted with this condition. I had my bouts with it in the past, was a wreck at times, but seemed to grow out of it mostly. I had no real reason to seek psychiatric help prior to the onset of my condition. I was later diagnosed bipolar 2, medicated fairly effectively, and I could fill a book with a number of hospitalizations and years of psych care. You get the picture. It took many years before I was properly diagnosed, and by the time I started to see symptoms, which were directly in the exact spot I was kicked, I was turning 19. I saw a clear and tangible swelling in my pelvic floor, and an ungodly feeling which I can only describe as a literal vice grip on my junk. My spermatic cords were clamped. My urethra pulled. Sex became something that just wasn't possible. I'd always been very sexually active. Okay, calm down, buddy. Mostly with myself, but it took my self-esteem down a peg. I'd wake up with morning wood and literally come to screaming until it went down. Life became hell very quickly. When I was floored by this at 17, I laid down and for the most part couldn't get back up. I was not coping well with the pain. I remember distinctly waking up having panic attacks when I'd start to feel the pain upon waking. The feeling is best described as waking up feeling trapped at the bottom of the ocean, grasping for air. I don't have panic attacks when I wake up anymore. I don't have panic attacks when I have flare-ups anymore. I know what's coming and I have accepted my fate. I had many episodes. These would start slowly at that age. I'd get a distinct feeling of dizziness every single time before they would come on. If I laid down motionless, they would pass, at least at that age. I'd start with dizziness. Normally I was limping, but getting around. I'd start to feel a buzzing sensation work its way up my body, starting at my waist, and going down my legs before going up my back, neck, and across the trigeminal nerves that run across my face. I would sit in biology in class in college and watch a slide of the trigeminal nerves as I was actively feeling it buzz its way up those same nerve pathways. I had figured out if I laid down for 3 hours, the buzzing would stop. That was freshman year of college. If I didn't, it would just get worse until I had an episode. What's an episode? Well, blindness, weakness, convulsions, and lately seizures. They would always come on slow for the first few years, but later I just started dropping randomly with little to no warning. It's beyond terrifying. I was found on concrete multiple times and rushed to the ER, waking up in the ambulance usually, screaming in agony. I randomly dropped one morning 8 months or so ago, right after I turned the water on to brush my teeth. I came to on the floor of my apartment, immediately feeling the damp carpet beneath me. I floored my apartment due to a random episode. A few months prior, I was standing by the edge of the river outside my apartment late at night, when I started to feel the distinct dizziness come on much quicker than ever before. I had seconds before I lost motor function, but I managed to turn my body so I fell mostly backwards instead of forwards. I wound up clinging on the edge, one foot dangling off, for a half hour before I regained the strength to stand and walk back to my apartment. There is not a doubt in my mind that if I had not moved my body, I would have dropped into the water and drowned. Nobody would have noticed. I pretty much isolated myself from the world. I always stayed on social media and met a good number of people who really were good for me and who I consider myself on good terms with still. Suicide, as I'm sure you can imagine, was not an illogical thought to my mind. I strongly believe that in my case, taking my own life isn't a choice that most people would look upon as bad. Most people are told not to kill themselves because it might get better. It has only gotten worse. I used to be a very active kid. I would hike, run, play music, and I considered myself a fairly talented bass player. I stopped being able to play bass at age 17. Last notes played around 18. That was really the worst thing I had to face. I did eventually pick up guitar before finally playing it for the last time last December, but I went 1.5 years without playing a note. That was by far the darkest period I ever went through. I stopped writing down my lyrics and actually deleted almost all the writing I had saved up to that point in one suicidal dark night of trying to erase my footprint on this earth. I always was a writer and had written enough songs to produce my own amateurish album by age 17 in 2014. Ironically, just before the onset of the bullshit. Once I hit this dark point of my life, my writing style shifted. I always say that if I hadn't had this happen, I wouldn't have had anything interesting to write about, so at least I can thank the fuck who ruined my life for that. I started to record the new album in 2017. I will not mince words. I was not supposed to be alive to see it released. The album was very dark, focused heavily on suicide, and was basically supposed to be my final suicide note that I'd leave behind before ending my life. Kinda like Elliot Rodger, but a bit less autistic. As such, when I showed my mother the first track titled, "Why Does Everyone I Fall in Love With Kill Themselves?" my mother responded with, "But it's suicide music?" So that's what I titled it. When I released it online, I actually did get some buzz going. It wasn't the reason I stayed, but it started a long trend of my thought process for remaining alive, being that I still had projects to finish, and I wanted to finish them before dying. I have managed to put out a good deal of music since then, enough to fill the quota on my free SoundCloud account. It really helped. No longer was I screaming into the void. People heard what I was saying. I was finally properly diagnosed at age 21. Chronic pelvic floor dysfunction. My pelvic floor muscles are basically doing Kegels, and that's as far as it's understood. The neurological symptoms are suspected to be a result of the pelvic issues, which are suspected to be the result of the injury. I finally did reach out to the kid who did it, now an adult. What's fucked up, he told me, "I don't have any memory of that event." The statute of limitations expired when I turned 21. There was zero reason for him to deny it. It just made my blood boil. Countless people have heard my story, and the tally is now 5 people who have offered to go down to where this person lives and crack him upside the tailbone with a baseball bat. Money wouldn't have helped this situation, so I don't care that I can't sue. I just want out of this pain. I know I'm going. It's just a matter of when. I am planning for next year. I am desperately hoping I will be able to go overseas and die with dignity via physician-assisted suicide. I'm going to leave behind a mess for people to traverse. I'm not that vain, but I know people are going to talk about it after I'm gone. I disappeared for a few months from social media and found my very first Reddit thread made about myself. inquiring if anyone knew if I had killed myself or what the date was on all my social media bios. The date is September 20th, 2020. It's been in my bios since before I released suicide music. It was initially a way to throw people off and make them think I wasn't planning on going in 2017 when I was finishing the album. I know I've already filled a novel with this, and I know it's all over the place, but I've tried to keep this as simple as possible. There are elements of domestic abuse, manipulation via my immediate family, who I no longer am in contact with. I left in August of 2018, and various other life elements which have contributed to the state I am in now. This isn't a cry for help. I'm not sure I even want the attention a big influencer like yourself, well, shut the fuck up, will bring to my small SoundCloud account. I just know that I've been suffering in silence for so many years, and there's no reason to hide it anymore. This is my life, and it will be until I finally decide the day has come to get out. I have many plans in terms of content, and I have been working behind the scenes on some very big video projects, poetry, long-form prose, and audio projects, all of which I intend to release post-mortem. Love your content, and I'm sure you get told in all these emails, but to be honest, seeing how people rallied around you when you were silenced by YouTube was very inspiring to me. The Depression Chamber series was, and is, so powerful to me as a series, and I respect how you take risks like this talking about content which others would shy away from. I truly wish you all the best, and if I had $1, I'd be a patron of yours. Also, not going to lie, for a while I got worried every time you'd upload that it would be a suicide note. I'm glad that feeling seems to have passed and you appear to be in a better place. Signed, the hippie cripple lost in the sauce. Let's see if I can find his SoundCloud and play... Let's see if we can play some of his suicide music. SoundCloud. Hey, there we go. Lost in the sauce. Let's take a gander, folks. I'm gonna turn up the volume, so sorry if it's really loud all of a sudden. Here's, which one? Where's one about suicide? Would someone please kill me? Here we go.
Would someone please kill me? I'm pissed that I'm still breathing out, not bleeding out on the floor. I know pain's not fatal and I'll have to wait till it's over, and that there's no cure for this unending torment. So get bent, I'm sure that I'm living the best that I can, but I'm just a waste and a drain on the system, no matter how hard I pretend that it's useful to stay living. I'm prolonging giving myself an easy out, maybe then I'll finally know peace, but until then I'm just looking forward to my untimely end. If these words are useful to anyone out there, then maybe it's not all for none. But fuck, this game's rigged, I'm giving up, and I'm sure I'm not the only one.
That's the cruelest donation.
Comorbidity, she's...
Kakashi fucked him up. Oh my god. Oh my god. Still better than Asperger's Ghost of Christmas Past? Well, that's... You could say that about any song ever made. You know, you can really hear the pain in his voice, I'll give him that. He has a reason to kill himself now? Nubcat, I think he had a reason to kill himself when he got the chronic injury. I guess this is the part of the show where I'm supposed to give advice, but it sounds like he's got everything figured out. So, I can't even begin to imagine having that kind of pain all the time. He's a stronger man than me. I would have killed myself immediately. Immediately. Fuck that. Look, suicide is never the answer, except to that singing. Wow. I guess if you want to hear more of that, go check out his SoundCloud. The name of which I just forgot. SoundCloud, Lost in the Sauce. Go give him a listen before he dies. Let him know what you think.